G'day, Phil. How you going?
Hey, Pato, not too bad. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thanks. Really good. So you got back to Australia yesterday, did you?
Yeah, yesterday afternoon. So, almost been home for 24 hours now.
Yeah, good. Um, so I've got a few questions written down, Phil. I mean, first of all, well done on your performance at Biggs. I mean, to do 100 hours, and you were obviously hurting as well in that last 24 hours or so. It was an incredible performance, I thought.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was
Um,
obviously not as high as what my PB was, but I think given the conditions of the course and what I was dealing with, I'm pretty happy with that result overall.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, it's been a long chapter in your running journey, this Biggs chapter, I guess you could call it,
Yeah.
because like not after not getting to Biggs in 2021 when you got invited, and then you had to wait another 12 months after you won your golden ticket. Um, how does it feel to be home now with that chapter behind you, and I guess a new one about to begin?
Yeah, like I had a really good time. Like the whole experience was really good. Not just the race, but traveling to America and seeing a few places over there. Um, and yeah, I've got a bit of time now between now and what my next event is, which it's not looking like it's going to be until probably March or April next year. Um, in a way, it kind of feels like, yeah, this event has been like the culmination of like the last 3 years of work, and now it's just, now I'm starting a new chapter. But also at the same time, it's like my backyard journey is not finished. I've still got a lot more plans and stuff coming up in the future. So
Yeah, cool. And during that time between winning the golden ticket, you did a lot. Like, I mean, a lot of backyard ultra golden ticket winners, they didn't even race till bigs, but you didn't do that. You ran at Hurdies, you ran at the Masters. Um, you broke 100, you broke the world record. And because you did so well, you were the world record holder, you went into bigs as pretty much the favourite. And I'm sure a lot of people were telling you, you're going to win, you're going to win. Um, but you seemed like you're pretty level headed. It didn't seem like you were feeling any pressure, but was there a part of you that was feeling pressure?
yeah, definitely a little bit. But I just keep reminding myself, just go into into this race the same way I go into every other race, and I'll never try to put that sort of pressure or expectation on myself. And I think it's easier with the backyards because it just starts out so casually. Like you just wake up in the morning and you go in and you're doing a little 6.7K jog. You come back, you regroup, you go out and do it again. And it's not like if you do a marathon, for example, or, even an ultra 50K, 100K, that first K or even that first 10K it's so important to get right. And if you're behind pace on that first K, say you're doing a marathon and you need to go at it 3 minutes 50 per K, but then your first K is like 3:55, then you have to try and make up all of that lost time in your following Ks and puts a bit more pressure on. Whereas with the backyard, you can come in and like my first lap's always pretty slow. If you come in and you're planning to do 50 minutes for your first lap, but you come in at 55, that extra 5 minutes, it doesn't really make a difference. So it's not really until it gets to the pointy end when you've been out there for 50 or 70 or 100 hours that you kind of get to that point where every little thing matters.
Mm.
um and that's kind of the way that I approach it, like just not having that pressure on me. It's just going in, I'm just going out for a casual run, and I just find that easier. And then it kind of, that pressure just builds up gradually throughout the race as you kind of get deeper into it.
Mm. Mm. Do you remember when you were on the podcast earlier in the year, on the Hurdies episode, you were talking about how things that you've lived in your life, like you used to work, you talked about how you worked at Domino's and that helped
Yeah,
you learn patience. Is there
yeah.
anything like in your life that's kind of like helped you with the pressure side of things?
um I think not specifically. I think it's something I've got better at handling with each backyard that I've done. Just like I've mentioned before, that every backyard I do, I learn something. I didn't really have any pressure on me in my first backyard because nothing was expected of me. And then I went and did my second backyard. And, after finishing my first backyard as the assistant, I'd come in with like bigger goals and all this. There was a little bit more pressure, but at the same time, I was never like, this isn't something I'm going to win. This is just, I'm going to try and beat what I did at my first backyard. But then I won that. And then I think from then on going into the next one, it's like there was a little bit more pressure there because I'd already won that one. I'd been an assist. So there was probably, that was the first backyard I did where there was probably that expectation that I would win that one as well. And yeah, just with every backyard I've done, it's just been that little bit more pressure. And to do, what was it? It would have been 8 in a row. So finishing with Masters that I'd won every single one. Yeah, that pressure just comes each time, that because I've won all of my previous ones, the pressure's on for me to win that one. But I never really think going into it, I never think that it's a given, or, a lot of people might have those expectations on me. But I always know that anything can happen in the backyard. I've seen people do really well at backyards, and then at the next backyard that they do, something happens and they're out of the race early, or there's someone else that comes along who no one's seen before, but then suddenly they're, running these huge numbers. So I never take it as a given. But yeah, I do kind of, I guess, along all of those backyards I've done, the pressure probably mounts a little bit more each time. And I've just learned to kind of take that on and, just kind of, I think I'm pretty good at managing it now. And a lot of the mind focus stuff I do as well. I just got to bring it back to thinking about myself and my own performance rather than looking at what other people are doing around me.
You mentioned the first backyard ultra that you ever did when you were the assist and Michael Hooker won. I've never asked you this before, but I was actually wondering, like, if Hooker wasn't in that race and you ended up being the last one standing, running like 31 or 32 yards, whatever it would have been, do you reckon you'd be the same runner today?
No, well, I think that backyard is the event where I've learned the most from. And coming so close to winning that, but then not winning, that just gave me the drive to kind of, pull out all the stops, just look at every single aspect of the race and see where are the areas that I can improve. And so that's, I think, what made me go from finishing at the assist as that to doing the next event and winning it and getting the Australian record. So, I haven't really, I haven't had that question before. But I think if I had won it with 31 hours and I wasn't kind of pushed to that breaking point, I would have probably gone into the next event just thinking, oh yeah, I won that one easy enough. I'll, be able to win this next one. And I probably wouldn't have changed anything. I wouldn't have kind of micromanaged all of those little things about my event. So I think, definitely losing that first one or coming as the assistant at that first one made me really analyze my performance and see what areas do I need to improve on.
And you also mentioned before about how anything can happen in a backyard ultra. And I was thinking about it before. It's so true because especially in the really, really long ones, there's just all that more extra time where something can go wrong. And because it's so much time, when something goes wrong, it just compounds and compounds as the race gets longer. But with Biggs, we talked a little bit about how it's going to be a more minimalist race for you, like less crew, less gear, less space. What type of usual items did you have to sacrifice?
So the biggest one was crew. So I've always gone into events having at least 3 crew. And so this one I'd gone in just having Gemma. But I was really lucky in the fact that kind of on the last, I think 2 days before, Lads changed the rules and he said, okay, you can have 1 crew swap. And I was lucky that I had a friend over there, Emma, and she'd come over to babysit the kids while we were out doing the event. And so I talked to her, and she was happy to jump in for the first 24 hours. So I had her crew for me. And then, yeah, Gemma came out and swapped with her on the second day. So yeah, it just really helped Gemma that she was coming into it nice and fresh. And so by the time we got to, like the fourth and fifth day, she wasn't that behind on her sleep. So yeah, that would be the biggest one. I mean, we did have crew as well. Like the people who'd normally crew for me, we had like a little message group. So they were there for moral support and to offer advice and things like that. And we also had, some of the Aussies jump in towards the end when, their races had ended. So Gemma wasn't completely on her own, but it's still very different working with crew that you haven't worked with before. So Gemma was really the only one who kind of knew all my little nuances and the things that I like specifically done and stuff like that. In terms of gear, like a big one for me was a shower. Every event I've been able to have a shower, whether it's, a proper hot shower or just something hooked up with a hose that I can spray myself down with. Bigs, there was one tap, which was about 400 meters away up the hill. And so there was no chance I was going to get up there to use that for a shower. Yeah. And so instead we had to do like a sponge bath. So we just filled a bucket with water, Gem heated a bit and put some boiling water in there as well, soap and a sponge. And like it did the job, but it didn't give the same sort of like refreshed feeling. And it was very rushed as well. So yeah, and for me, the shower is not just about getting clean. It's about having that normality of your day. So every day kind of you wake up and you have a shower and you're ready to tackle that day. So for me, the whole ad hoc sponge bath, it got me clean and all that, but it just wasn't, it wasn't the same refreshing feeling. It's, just stepping out from under, having a hot shower and, feeling ready to tackle another day. But yeah, was lucky with a lot of the bigger gear that we had. We got put in contact with someone over there who was able to get us like the recliner chairs and tables and eskeys and stuff like that. I actually ended up going to Walmart and buying a recliner chair as well, because the one that we got lent wasn't super comfy. Like it did the job, but I was like, if I'm going to be here for a long time and this is where I'm going to be sitting every break, let's just go out and buy a comfier chair.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's yeah, they were probably the biggest kind of differences I had.
I saw
going into this race.
Yeah, I did notice on the live stream, actually. I'm not sure if you've watched any of the live stream or
little bits and pieces, but not a lot of it.
Yeah. Because I did notice on the live stream there was one time, it might have been in the 80s, when it was on the last night anyway, you were on the phone to someone, I think it was the bloke who was at the Masters who was helping you with your sleep.
Nathan.
Yeah, so it sounds like you had a pretty good way of still doing what you needed to do, but in a different kind of way.
Yeah, so Nathan was really good. It is handy when he's at the event and he can do like the hypnotherapy sessions kind of tailor-made for what point I'm at in the event, and he's kind of got a bit more awareness of what's going on and how I'm progressing through the race. Whereas this time he had some pre-recorded stuff, which was really good for like early on. I didn't need to kind of bother him and call him up. I could just use the pre-recorded stuff he had. But as I started kind of having more specific problems later on, it's like Gemma was on the phone to him trying to explain what's happening. And then I'd come in and I'd have a little quick chat with Nathan explaining what's going on. And so he'd kind of make up that session on the fly. But it worked pretty well. We did the best with what we had. It's not the same as having him there in person, but having him on the phone was the next best thing. So I think that worked pretty well.
Yeah. And I'm tipping that you wore the Tarkine road shoes at night and the Trail Devils during the day?
Yeah. And exactly the same sort of plan that I had for Masters.
Yeah.
Although with Masters I did wear the road shoes on a lot of the trail loops. But this trail, it was just a lot more difficult and technical. I just, stuck to the trail shoes the whole time on the trail loops.
Yeah, yeah. How many shoes did you take with you?
So I took 2 of the Trail Devils and 2 of the Goshawks.
Oh, yeah.
And so I just kind of alternated them each day. And then I also had another pair of backup, like a non-Tarkine pair, which, I didn't end up using, but it was just there just in case those 2 pairs ended up not working for me.
Mm. Do you ever do barefoot running? Because I saw that Tarkine, they've brought out a barefoot shoe.
Yeah, I haven't actually tried that one yet. I'm not a big fan of the zero drop or the barefoot running.
Yeah.
I think I probably will try those shoes at some point just because they're Tarkine, but it's not really my usual type of shoe.
Yeah, fair enough. So I know you did a bit of touristy things when you got to the US. When did you get to, or how long were you in America for, and when did you get to Laz's hometown?
So we landed in Texas on the Friday, like not the day before the event, but like a week and a day before. So it was in Texas for about 4 days, and then we went to Nashville. Was in Nashville for a couple of days, and then we went to Murfreesboro. So Murfreesboro was like the closest town to where Laz was. It's probably about 25, 30-minute drive. So we were set up there in an Airbnb, and we got there on the Thursday. And then, we went to Laz's on Friday and did all of our setup stuff. And then, it was an early night on Friday and woke up early Saturday morning to drive back down there.
Yeah. And when you went there on the Friday to set up and everything like that, did you walk the trail?
No, didn't have a lot of time to do that. And with the backyard, it's like I don't need to do a recon. I'll just do my recon on the first lap.
Yeah.
I did see some video footage and I'd spoken to some people about the course. And before I'd actually run that first lap, I've had, like I wasn't really looking forward to the day course at all. Like what I'd heard about it, I was just like, this is going to be real rough. But then I did that. I think because my expectations were like that, when I actually went and ran it, I was like, oh, this isn't actually too bad. Like it's still like the hardest backyard course that I've done. But it wasn't as bad as I was expecting it to be. So it's probably kind of good in a way that I hadn't done the course and I kind of had built my expectations up that it's going to be real tough, because then when I went and did it, I'm like, well, it's not actually as bad as I thought it was going to be. And actually I quite enjoyed it for the first couple of days. But it does really start wearing down on you.
Yeah, because I saw a few runners posted photos or videos on Instagram on the day before it started of them walking the trail, and it did look hard. And the hardest thing to me was it was all covered in leaf litter, so it was impossible to see. But those leaves cleared out pretty quickly by the look of things.
Yeah, so by the second day, it was like it had been a bit more groomed with everyone's footsteps, and the leaves had kind of cleared up a bit. And I think those leaves probably did kind of hide a few trip hazards and, rocks and little stumps and stuff like that on the first day. And I'm pretty sure at least once every lap, I would have seen someone trip and fall. I myself, I stubbed my toe a few times or had some close calls where I almost fell. But it wasn't until the 5th day where I actually had my first proper fall.
Yeah. It looked hard. I mean, that poor Indian bloke, he fell pretty bad and was out about 7 or 9 yards, I think. It cost
I thought it was a bit later than that, but I can't remember.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely cut a few runners' races a lot shorter than it otherwise would have. But how did you sleep the night before? Did you have like a nice night's sleep?
Yeah, I probably had, I had a solid 8 hours. We had to get up at about, I think it was about 4. I probably woke up about 4:45 because we wanted to leave by 5:30 to get there by 6 o'clock to have that hour before the event started to finish our setup. But I would have been in bed by probably like 8 o'clock. So I still had a good 8 hours sleep. And, when my alarm went off at 4:45, I was up and ready to go. And was pretty good. So
Mm. Do you think because, I mean, I understand you're a shift worker. Do you reckon because you're a shift worker that helps you with just being able to fall asleep whenever you want to, kind of, or easily?
um, yeah, like I think I'm pretty good with my sleep anyway. Like I don't. I mean, maybe being a shift worker has something to do with it, but I think it's probably more like the meditation and stuff that I do before bed that I think helps me a lot. And I'm always a fairly good sleeper.
Mm.
And I can kind of just get to sleep within 5 minutes of my head hitting the pillow. And I think that, especially like in the lead up to an event, like the whole probably 2 to 3 weeks before the event, I was kind of focused on getting that 8 to 9 hours of sleep. So yeah, when it comes to the event, and I'd kind of adjusted my bedtime that every night I'm trying to go to bed that little bit earlier. So by the time it gets to the event, I can go to bed at 8 o'clock and I'm tired enough that I can get to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, it's not only about the night before the race, it's about banking sleep in the days leading up to it as well, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. And I mean, it was harder because I was, sleeping in different beds and, different places like hotel rooms. And, there's always so much that I want to do because I'm in a new place and, visit new areas and that. But I was just like, no, I got to make sure, I can get to sleep early. And every night it's, just get to sleep that little bit earlier. You're waking up that little bit earlier. And then so by the time it gets to the event day or the night before the event, you can get to bed at 8 o'clock and you can sleep fine. And
Mm.
it's like I was talking about before, like I don't go into it having all of this pressure that everything has to be right from that very first lap, because just taking that pressure off, having those first few laps needing to be perfect just makes your sleep a bit better. Whereas if you're going into like a marathon or one of those point-to-point ultras, you can start to stress about it a bit, and that can affect your sleep. Whereas this, it's like, oh no, it's going to be fine. Like,
You made me think like you take a pretty laid back approach for the first few yards, getting into the groove kind of thing. But it's
yeah,
funny, some runners take the opposite approach. Like Sam Harvey, for example, he ran a 28-minute loop at Dead Cow Gully, and it looked like he ran the fastest first loop at Biggs as well.
yeah. But for me, it's like doesn't matter what you do that first loop in, and in fact, I'm probably my first loops are probably my slower ones, because for me, there's less stuff that I need to do during the break for those laps. Getting that rest, maximizing that rest time during the break isn't as important. Yes, I just go out there, take it easy. Like I don't want to be at the back, because especially with a course like this where I knew it was going to be single trail for a lot, I didn't want to get stuck behind a lot of people. So I try to kind of make my way towards the front of the group, but not at the front. Because the other thing is I hadn't done the course before and I didn't know how hard it was going to be to follow. And so I wanted people in front of me who I knew the way, so I wasn't going to get lost. And I mean, as it was pretty easy to follow and it was very well marked, and there wasn't really any areas where you could get lost. But yeah, once I've done that first lap and I know where I'm going, then I can just kind of start to settle into a groove.
Mm. And in the starting corral, like before the first yard,
Yeah.
like what was it like? Was it hard to believe that you were actually there and the race was about to start? Was it like a bit like a dream? Because that's how I imagine it would be like.
It was probably more like that on the Friday night. Friday afternoon. When all the runners were kind of rocking up at Laz's, and I'll go and see people who I know by reputation, but I haven't actually met in person yet, or I might follow them on Instagram, or people follow me on Instagram, and you get to meet these people for the first time, and you're going to meet Laz, and just being there and thinking, oh, this is where the world champs is. We're going to be running this tomorrow. I think I had a lot more of those sort of feelings on the Friday, but by the time I got there on Saturday, it was just like any other backyard. Just line up in the corral and let's go do this.
Yeah. So I saw you bumped into one or two runners in Laz's hometown on the front. I saw you bumped into John Stocker. Were you bumping into many runners, or was it just John Stocker?
No, it was just John Stocker. So it was funny because we're at Walmart at the Subway at Walmart, and I'm standing there putting in my order, and I hear someone behind me calling out Phil, Phil, and I'm like, I'm not responding because I'm like, I'm in this strange place. No one here knows me, and then like he taps me on the shoulder, and I turn around. So John Stocker. So it was just it's just bizarre. I wasn't expecting to bump into anyone there, but then yeah, had a real good chat with him, and we had lunch together, and yeah, that was really good. But I mean, besides the Aussie guys, I didn't. The only other people I bumped into were down at Laz's property.
Yeah. So watching the live stream and also looking at how consistent your times were, it definitely seems like you were well and truly in the zone for the first 3 days and 3 nights.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was probably the best I've been out of any events for the first 3 days. Everything was just like clockwork. I wasn't having any issues. I was just going out. I was sticking to my plan, following the paces that I was meant to be doing. The only things I really had to change was so my shower laps, which I say are a shower lap, but again, it was a sponge bath. I'd planned to have that sort of around 10 o'clock, which I did for the first day. But then I realized it's hard to do that faster time on the day course. So instead, I moved that to the last night lap. I did a faster lap, and so it's just when the sun was coming up. I ended up having my shower lap then because it was just easy to get the faster lap done and have that spare time after doing the road course. And it kind of, I think, works better for that psychological thing as well because it marks the end of the night laps and the start of the day laps. But yeah, other than that, every lap was as I'd planned it. And yeah, it went really well. But yeah, it was obviously it was just a little bit into the 4th day. I started having the pain in my leg, and it just started out small. But you can see with my times, I kind of not as consistent for that 4th day, and then the 4th night things started falling apart, and you can see that on the times as well. And yeah, it just stemmed from that little leg thing, and it just I was able to kind of hold it at bay for as long as possible, but it was just something that was inevitably going to get worse. So
Right. One thing that was captured on the live stream was probably around the 72-hour mark. The cameraman asked how you were feeling, and you did say, at this stage, this is the 3rd time I've been in this stage of a backyard ultra, and this is the best I've felt so far at this stage in a race. But yeah, I think it was around the 74-hour mark, was it, that you started feeling your leg? Does that sound about right?
Yeah, so that was the first time that I asked Jem. It's like, I probably need to start the Panadol, which for me, like, I'm probably having the painkillers a little bit earlier in the backyards. And I was surprised I got through 3 days without even needing to think about, should I have some painkillers yet? So I remember, I think it was lap 74. I was like, I've got this pain here, and I should probably start to take the Panadol to stay on top of it. And yeah, so that's when that kind of happened, and like I still got through the day okay. But then at the end of the 4th day, there was Jivey. He'd fallen down on course, and I come across him. He's on his own on the bridge there, and he looked catatonic. So I'm like, I can't leave him here. And then I phoned up Jem and trying to explain to her to get someone to come out and help him, or to let Laz know. And so I kind of stayed with him for a bit. And yes, I stayed with him, and then it was Kevin from Belgium. He was already he'd finished his race, and so he was just still hanging around, and he'd got word that he was out there somehow. So he came out there. So I had to stay with Jarvie for I don't know. I think it was probably about 5 minutes before Kevin rocked up, and when he came and took over, looking after him, then I'm like, okay, now I've got to sprint to catch the tail here. And I think, yeah, going out and like kind of running, I was out of rhythm then. I was doing a pace faster than what I'd been trying to maintain during that day, and I think I probably just put a bit too much pressure on that leg, and because then it started to escalate from there, and yeah, and you see, like going into the night, I then wasn't able to maintain my quick night loops to get my sleep in, and then I wasn't getting the sleep. So then, yeah, my cognition and stuff started to go downhill, and yeah, I mean, I just had to do the best with the situation I was presented with, and I think I kind of managed it as best I could, and Gemma managed it as best that she could. So I'm pretty happy with how far I went, considering those issues that I was having.
Do you know what happened to Jivey? Was he okay?
It was okay in the end. I don't know specifically, but when I found him, I was trying to talk to him, and I didn't know if he spoke English or not. And he just wasn't giving me any answers. He was just like looking deep into space, and yeah, so I don't know specifically what was wrong with him. But then when I finished that lap, I saw him. He was with a couple of other people who were, arms around their shoulders, and they were bringing him in. And I just quickly checked in with him if he was okay, and he seemed like he was going to be all right. So went and finished the lap, but yeah, he was. Yeah, I think he just reached that point where he was just didn't know what was going on, didn't know where he was, didn't know what to say or any of that.
Yeah, he was running some, like making it back just in time and then going out and doing more loops. So he was pushing it to the very limit, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So with it was your left leg, I believe. Like when the pain was at its worst, what out of 10, what would have you given the pain?
Not quite a 10, but I mean, it was not too bad on the road. Like I could manage it on the road. And once I'd been kind of running for, say, 500 meters to a K, it just gets to a point where I can just deal with it. But then when I switched to the trail, it was like every time, I stepped on something uneven or, kicked a rock or a root or something, it would just send this shooting pain up my leg. And, on day one, I'll be kicking rocks all over the place and it wouldn't bother me. But by this time, if I accidentally kicked something or even just stepped off of, some uneven ground or something, stepped wrong, it would just send this shooting pain up. So when it was at its worst and sending that shooting pain up, I would say I'd be close to a 10. Right. But otherwise it was probably a manageable 6 or 7.
Yeah. And do you put it down to just one of those innocuous things that just happens in races sometime just from overuse, or do you think you might have stepped on something in the trail, or you just don't know?
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny because I had a similar issue at the end of Dead Cow Gully. It kind of started in the last few laps. But I was still running on it fine at that point, and it wasn't really bothering me too much. But then the next day, it was feeling pretty bad, and it was a bit of recovery to come back from that. And then when I flew over to, that all cleared up and that was fine. And then when I flew to Texas, kind of the next day, that same leg started hurting my right leg. Oh. So then I'm on the phone to my physio and that, trying to work out what to do because, I've only got a week before the event, and Gemma's massaging it like 3 times a day, and we're putting these creams and stuff on it. And by the time I got to the event day, it was fine. It was like nothing had even happened to it. And I'm like, great. But then it was the left leg that started playing up, and I'm just like, well, Gemma's given so much attention to this right leg with all the massaging and stuff, but we haven't done anything to the left leg. So maybe it's just feeling a bit left out, and it's like, now it's going to, something's happened to it. But it's probably it'll be an overuse thing. I do a lot of technical trails and stuff with, in my training and that, but I've never really done it for, 100 odd hours. So I I don't know if the course kind of played a role in it or not, or if it was just one of those things that just happened to happen on that day. So, but I've got an appointment with the physio after this interview, actually. So I'll go to the physio, and because it's kind of, yeah, this is the second time it's happened now with a different leg. I'll just probably have a bit more of a chat with him about how to prevent this from happening in future.
Yeah. Now I did read that you were playing with the idea of maybe pulling the plug when you first started feeling the pain. Like I'm tipping when you felt it around the 9 out of 10 mark, that's when you were thinking that. How close were you to pulling the plug?
So yeah, the pain started around the 74 hours. So that was during the fourth day. And then it was when it got to the fourth night and I started not being able to get my sleep in. So I'd probably been dealing with that pain for a good sort of 10 hours. And yeah, I was just coming back and I'm having conversations with Gemma. Like, I was just at that point where it's like, what's the point? Like, I'm going to do another 2 laps and, risk doing even more damage to my leg. Like, what's the point for just another 2 laps? And I remember actually when Rob was coming in from a lap, and I was heading out, he was missing the cutoff. I would have been 84, I think he'd missed the cutoff for, whichever his last lap was anyway. And so I kind of stopped and had a quick chat with him and, said well done and all that. And I told him, look, I'm probably not far behind you. Like, I've got this issue with my leg that's just getting worse. And I've probably only got another couple of laps with me. And so, yeah, I'd had these conversations with my crew and saying, like, what's the point of keep going? I could, I'm thinking maybe I've got like a fracture or something and I could be doing some serious damage. And they're just, they were pretty good in just getting me to keep going. And it's like, well, you're not at that point yet where you need to quit. Like, let's just keep going. You're still getting in time. And, I might have not been getting the sleep time that I wanted, or, my nutrition plan had to kind of change around a little bit. But I was still getting the laps done. So it's just like, let's just keep going and see how far I can go on it.
Yeah, well, it looks like that fourth night, your time's definitely slowed. And it looks like there was a bit of you on the live stream during that fourth night, not that much. But from what I saw, you were trying to sleep, but it didn't look like you were very comfortable, that's for sure.
Yeah, like, I've always, like with my sleep strategy, it's always like, let's try and get that 15 minutes, but let's not kill myself trying to get in that time to make sure I can get that time. So if I need to slow the pace down, I will. And it's just like, let's just get whatever sleep I can get. So yeah, some laps it was working out to be like 5 minutes or whatever, because I'm not kind of waking up right before the bell. I kind of have that little bit of time to, get myself organized and together to go out. So I'm probably getting up like 3 minutes, like maybe on that first whistle. So yeah, if I'm getting in about 50 minutes, I'm probably getting 7 minutes late, which wasn't ideal. I wasn't quite getting to that. If I can get 15 minutes of sleep, I can kind of get into that second stage of sleep. Sometimes I even get to that point where, I'm having dreams and stuff like that. So I'm getting into that pretty deep sleep. But if you're only getting 5 minutes, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's good to get that rest and kind of reset, but you're not getting into that deep sleep mode. So it just makes each lap that little bit harder, I think. And I think it's probably, that sleep thing is probably an area that really helps me out and helps me go long in these backyards compared to some other runners who probably just do really well without getting any sleep at all. So for me, I think it's fairly important. Like I can do it without, but I mean, the more sleep I can get, the more like aware and cognitive and stuff that I will be.
Yeah. I know that you rate how you were feeling at the end of each loop, and Gemma writes it down on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Do you know what kind of ratings you were giving yourself on that fourth night?
It definitely did get down to 1, which is the lowest.
Yeah.
It was probably that for a few laps. but yeah, I haven't actually been back over all my notes yet. That's something I'll do when I sit down and I start running my run report. Um, which, because I've just been in the US this whole time, I haven't really had a chance to do that. But it definitely got down to the ones. There would have been a lot of twos in there as well. Especially when I'm having the conversation with Gemma about, I think it's time to pull the pin. That's definitely at my lowest. But yeah, I ended up, like, I did start to improve by the end of the fourth night.
Mm.
But then switching to the trail course, that just didn't help. If we'd stayed on the night course, I think I would have been able to do a lot more laps. It was easier to manage my leg on that. But then with the unpredictability and the unevenness and stuff of the day course, it just made it a lot harder to manage my leg and kind of get into that rhythm.
Yeah, yeah. On the 97th loop, which I think was the first day loop back on the trail, you ran past one of the cameras in the woods and you looked in really good spirits, like you gave a two-handed wave. And I thought, gee, Phil's back. But do you actually remember things like that, or is it just one big blur?
I remember giving a wave to the camera a lot of times, and like even I think from lap one, once I'd kind of worked out where the cameras are, I'd try and give a thumbs up or a wave, or it doesn't matter how I'm feeling inside. I'd always try to act a bit more positive on the outside. So I probably was really hurting at that point. But it's like Brad says, smiles gets the miles. So as long as you just kind of keep trying to look happy outward, it can help you psychologically. So, but yeah, maybe if the camera was at some different points on the course there that I didn't know about, you probably would have seen me really hurting, and like I was hunched over a few times, just really struggling. So when the camera's there, I'm probably putting on a brave face for it. Yeah. But outside of that, yeah, if there'd been some hidden cameras, you would have seen a different side of me.
Yeah. So the 100th yard, actually, I think it was the 101st yard that you actually. Oh no, it was the 100th, because you came back and you obviously had fallen. You had a cut chin and you had dirty top. So, but that was the first time you fell for the whole race. Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't even realize it had happened. Like I just remember, like 1 minute I'm running and the next minute, like I'm on the floor with a mouthful of dust, and like I didn't even have any grazes on my hands or anything. Like I hadn't put my hands out to stop me falling, and it's kind of, I don't know. I don't think I blacked out or anything, but I remember running, and then I remember being just flat on the floor, and like my mouth was filled with dust, and like my chin was just dripping with blood. Like I had no idea how bad it was. Not far behind me were some other runners, and I just asked them to take a look at me to see if I was okay, and they're like, "Yeah, you look all right." And I was worried about if I'd knocked any teeth out, or my jaw didn't feel quite right. So I didn't know if I'd broken my jaw or anything like that. I'd had the wind knocked out of me as well, so it's just trying to get that breath back. And it was kind of like, before I had that fall, I felt like this was like the fourth day loop, and I'd felt like I was just kind of getting back into the rhythm of finding out those bits on the course that I could run to make sure I could get back in enough time. And when I had that fall, it was just like, I just felt like I was getting in the rhythm, and then I've just been all thrown again. And I'm surprised I actually finished that lap, because I was just stumbling around for a little bit. I was starting to get really dizzy, so I didn't know if I'd, kind of banged my head somehow, that I was getting a bit of concussion or whatever. And there were a few times I just kind of stopped and I hunched over, and I'm like, okay, where am I? I'm looking at my watch. It's like, oh, okay, I'm not at the halfway point yet, or, I'm just trying to work out based on what my watch says and what my surroundings are. Because a lot of that course will kind of look similar, and it's hard to work out where you are. And I'm trying to work out, what my pace is. Am I going to make it back in time? And I think that lap I came in at like 58 minutes or something like that. Yeah. And I remember saying to Jem, like, I got to stop. Like I've had a fall. I'm feeling dizzy. And she's like, no, you can't stop yet. Just go do another one. And her thing was, because you got the out and back, It's like if I do that first out and back bit and I come back in and I'm still not good, then I can still pull out. Or if something happens out on the course there, they're going to see me out there. But yeah, I got back past the corral and I was still feeling all right. So it's like, well, let's just keep going. And yeah, it wasn't until I was still kind of getting that little bit disoriented. I wasn't even at the halfway point yet, and I'm just like still just trying to work out where I am. And yeah, there was a few moments where I'm kind of just, I think I even sat on the floor at one point and I was just like, just trying to regain composure. And, then I'm getting up and it's like, no, come on, you can do this. And then there was a point on the course, it was kind of just before the halfway where you'd normally get some people come out and cheer you on. And I'm like, when I get there, I'll just check in with them and, make sure I'm all right to keep going or whatever. And I got there and there was no one there for that lap. And then I looked off into the distance and I'm like, well, there's a car there. And I assumed that there was a car park. Like these people, obviously they're getting to this area somewhere. So they must drive to a car park and get out and walk. So I just go to that car and there'll be someone there that can help me. So then I've come off the course. Yeah. And I've gone to where this car is and it turns out it's a rock. And then I'm like, well, I'm already off the course now. I'm not going to get back on the course and get back in time. So I was on a new path and I'm like, the people that are coming down here, they're coming from somewhere. So let's just keep following this path. And I kind of had no idea if I'd be following it for, 50 meters or it might be, 4Ks away. Because it was kind of near the halfway point. So, and I had no idea, like I knew the course, but I didn't know like what it looked like on a map. So I didn't know like that it kind of looped back around. And so I'm thinking I'm probably at one of the furthest points from the camp here. But then I came out into a clearing and there were all of these tents. And it looked like someone was setting up for a music festival because it didn't look like the race village because I was seeing it from the back angle. Like I hadn't seen it from that angle. And I'm just like, okay, there'll be someone here who can help. And then like, I think, yeah, some people kind of saw me stumbling out of the bushes and then they starts all this clapping and stuff like that. And then the cameras are coming on me. And it kind of took me a second to realize what was happening. And then, yeah, I just went and sat down and yeah, Jen was there and just explained to her what had happened and got a good look at my chin. And was it Julie or Camille was a nurse? And yeah, they're looking at my chin, making sure I haven't done any serious damage to it. But yeah, that was like that would have been like my physical limit. Like I've been kind of chasing that spot since like my second ever backyard. I've been, want to see if I can get to that point where I'm absolutely utterly exhausted. I can't do another lap. So I've reached that point now. It's not quite the way I wanted to do it, but yeah, that's how it happened. And yeah.
So yeah, because I read your post where you mentioned about the rock and the music festival. How long were you struggling with like holding a grip of reality? Did you actually know you were?
It was. Well, I'd kind of in the fourth night, like overnight, I was kind of. I was out running the laps and like I knew I was running a backyard, and I'm just like, what is the point of this? Like, why are we all out here running? Like, we have these we had like the timing chips on our ankle, and I'm like, the only thing we're doing is we're taking this timing chip over to the halfway point and then we're turning around and coming back just so this timing chip can get registered or whatever. I don't even know if it was getting registered at the halfway point or if it only gets measured at the corral. And I'm just like, why are we doing it? Like, why don't we, like, what's the point? What is it achieving? And I remember I was like, I kind of had enough cognitive awareness to know that I was at this kind of mental state when I did the satellite champs. So I'm telling Jem, I'm like, I've reached that point that I was at satellite champs. I'm not thinking straight. And I'm just trying to explain to her, like, I'm trying to piece together in my head what the point of a backyard is. And like, I'm just out there running and I'm looking at my watch and I know that I need to keep the pace under this, but I don't know why. Like, why am I doing this for? But Jem was really good and, talking with my nutritionist on the phone and trying to get me back on track, that by the time I got back to those day laps, and with the help of the sun coming up and all that, I was kind of in a better mental state. But then when I had that fall, that was when I started getting all that disorientation and kind of not knowing where I am. And it was kind of like, yeah, I was back on track. And then just within an instant, I was just had that fall and I was kind of just a bit lost again.
Yeah. Do you did you stick around at the race for long after you finished, or was it just like you had to go home, have a shower, and go to sleep?
We stuck around for a little bit. I was so tired that I was falling asleep in the chair, and yeah, we kind of just before it started getting dark, we thought we need to kind of get back home and we'll have a shower, and if they're still going in the morning, then we'll come back. But I would have liked to have stayed a little bit longer because it was only, I think, a couple of hours after we left that the race actually finished. Yeah. But I was just so exhausted. I was so tired.
Yeah. Do you remember when you left? Did you have an idea of who you thought would end up being the last one standing?
So yeah, when we left, it was just Ihor and Harvey. Yeah. And Harvey was looking strong. I mean, I thought it would, like, I always like to go for the underdog, and it would have been really cool for Ihor to win it, but I kind of had a good idea that Harvey was probably going to be the one to do it.
Yeah. So with Harvey Lewis, you probably heard him say in other interviews, and he also mentioned it on the interview that played on the live stream between loops and stuff like that. He uses computer games as an analogy with races and said it's like playing a computer game with his body. And he said that he was going into running at Bigs as a new game piece. And it's the second time you've ran against him in a backyard ultra. And this time, the first one was at the Masters, which you won. And this time he was the last one standing. So was he like a whole new character compared to the Masters?
Yeah, it was definitely a bit different racing against him this time. You could tell he was a bit more like driven. Like with Masters, it was all about, getting everyone through the nights and, working together and all of that. Whereas this one, he was kind of a bit more on his own. Like he was still out there talking to other people and stuff, but it wasn't, getting the whole group together and stuff like that. And I think even it was a bit harder to be social with the single track because you can't kind of run side by side. And then at night, it's just, I don't think night's a very social time anyway because it's a bit darker and you can't really see each other and stuff like that. So, like, I found that I wasn't as social as I am at other runs, and I think it was probably the same for Harvey as well. He didn't seem as social, but it just kind of came across that he was probably just a bit more driven and a bit more focused on winning this, or yeah. So it was a little bit different running with him this time than at Masters.
Were you ever a gamer back when you were younger?
A little bit, but not super into it.
Yeah, fair enough. So, and as far as the leg goes, you're going to the physio after this, so you'll.
Yeah.
How's it feeling now? Is it still hurting?
So it was getting a lot better since the race, but then our last day in Florida, I went and did a park run just because I'm all the way overseas. I might as well tick another park run off. So I went out there. That was pretty much my first run since the event, and I had no idea how well I would go. I would just start running, and I'd kind of allowed myself 40 minutes because I booked an Uber. I had to get the Uber within 40 minutes to get to the airport on time. But I started running and I was like going at like 4-minute Ks. I'm like, well, I feel all right. Let's just keep this up, and ended up doing a sub 20 park run. But then afterwards I was like, maybe I probably shouldn't have done that because now my leg's hurting again. But yeah, we went out and I bought a pair of crutches. I was getting around on crutches a bit. We went to Disney World and I was pushed around in a wheelchair at Disney World just to kind of protect the leg. And then it was getting better, and I just went and kind of undid all that good work by doing a 20-minute park run. But yeah, I don't have any other events coming up, so I've got a bit of time to focus on the recovery. But I'll see what the physio says today and get it sorted out.
Yeah. Did you finish in the top 10 at that park run at least?
No,
Or no?
no, I was 16th, I think.
Oh, okay. Still.
But I was just happy that I was able to finish it and get my Uber on time.
Yeah, yeah.
And I ended up getting to the airport just as they were doing the last boarding call, so I almost missed the plane. But
Man.
Gemma had gone ahead of me, so she'd got there early and checked all the bags and stuff in and waited for me there. So, but I'd said to her, if I don't make it on in time, just get on the plane and I'll just book a ticket for another one.
Yeah, yeah. So now Biggs is done and dusted. Have you started mapping out your next moves?
Yeah, so the two that I've got definitely for next year in terms of backyards are the Pilbara Trailblazers one. So that's up in the north of WA. So that's the first time they're doing a backyard. So it's called the Red Dust Backyard Ultra. Was it Red Dirt? One of those anyway. So they've done it the last couple of years, but they've capped it at 24. But next year, they're doing it as an open-ended, like proper backyard rules. So I'm going up to do that one. That's in June, and then I'll be doing the Satellite Champs.
Yep.
And then I'm going to be doing. So I'm doing Mirror as you talked to Adam McDonald about the Search for Hurt thing. So I'm going down to that as like a mentorship capacity. So I'm not actually running that, but it's going to be really good to get to go there and help the other guys run that. And I'm going to be doing No Time to Die. I probably won't be running it, but I'll be there in some capacity, helping out or something like that. But I might run it. Yet to be decided. But I also want to start focusing on the 24-hour run. So I've done a few 24-hour runs before, but I'd like to go to the 24-hour champs in 2025, which are in France. Right. So I'm going to have to do a qualifying time for that. So I'll probably do a 24-hour run next year. So that might be the Asia Oceanic Champs, which is I think it's in April. So yeah, I've got a bit of an idea what I want to do, but the only two that are definitely locked in is the Pilbara Trailblazers one and the Satellite Champs.
Yep. Did you consider Dead Cow Gully and trying to win the 10,000 golden loot?
Yeah, it was very appealing, but yeah, it didn't line up with the other events that I'd already committed to. The other thing is as well, like the $10,000, it's a great incentive, but for me, it's not why I run these events. I don't run it for the money. And I just thought if I went in there and the success of the event for me was tied to winning money or not, then it would just be a really disappointing experience if I didn't get there. And it's a big commitment to, like when I went and did Masters, obviously there was no prize money there, but it was still a big expense to get there in terms of airfares and stuff like that. But I didn't go there for money. I went there to see how far I could push myself, which I think I did pretty well.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I went there and if I spent a lot of money to try and get there and then I didn't end up winning anything, then to me, it'd just be like, oh, I've just spent all this money to go there to try and win money and then not won it. So, but yeah, if it was an event that I was already planning on doing anyway, then yes, definitely a great incentive for me to try and win it. But yeah, it didn't line up with the other things that I had on, and yeah, it's not the reason why I do these events anyway.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you've already got a pretty busy schedule lined up, so that's pretty cool. As far as Dead Cow Gully goes, that doco was awesome, isn't it?
Yeah. So it came out a week before the event, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to watch this before the event or not. Like, it's either going to pump me up and get me ready to go, or it's just going to make me think, oh crap, I got to do all this again. But I watched it, and I think it was really good, and I think it was really, it wasn't just about the world record. Like, obviously that was a big part of the event, but it was really well balanced between showing all of the different people's stories, and whether they did 15 laps or 102, there was a story for everyone to be told there. And I think it just, for anyone thinking of doing a backyard, they're not going to be intimidated by thinking, oh, I have to be able to run 100 hours. They can see these people that have, done their 15 hours or whatever it is, and they can see that that's something that's achievable for them. And so I think it's can appeal to everybody. And I think, everyone thinking of doing a backyard should probably give that a watch.
Yeah.
Or, even if you just don't want to do one, but you like following the format, it's a really good doco to watch.
Yeah, it's awesome. Like the first 2 minutes, as I was mentioning, as I think Tim on one of the previous podcasts I did said, all you need to do is watch that first 2 minutes, and you.
Yeah, I was like that as well. I was at one of the airports waiting for. I think it was the flight to Nashville, from Texas, and I was just like, I'll just start watching it while I'm waiting for the plane. And then I just kind of got hooked into it, and I couldn't turn it off. And then we got it onto the plane, and there was no Wi-Fi on the plane, but we had to put it into airplane mode. But it had downloaded enough while I'd been watching it, and I almost got to the end of it, except the last 2 minutes hadn't downloaded, so I had to wait till we landed to go back and watch the last 2 minutes.
Talking about that satellite, the Sat Champs in October, that Australian team is going to be really, really strong, isn't it?
Yeah. We were talking about it at Biggs as well. So obviously, there were 7 of us there, and we're talking about the Sat Champs last year, and it didn't really feel like it was a team event, but a lot of us were just meeting each other for the first time, and there wasn't that sort of cohesiveness, and like some people had just got onto the team without even realizing what the process was or how it worked, and they might have just done one backyard before, and that had somehow got them onto the list or got them a silver ticket. Yeah. So we're talking about it like it's going to be so different going into it next year. Like I think we're going to have a lot more of a cohesive team. You're going to see a lot more working together sort of thing. And everyone that's there, they're going to have a bit of experience, and you're probably still going to have 60 laps to make the team or win a silver ticket. Everyone's going to have a bit of experience, and they're probably all going to be there because they want to be there, not just because somehow they've found themselves on the list. So, and I already know that there's a lot of people kind of eyeing off what are the silver ticket events or how many laps am I going to need to do to get onto the team. So I'm really looking forward to it next year, and I'm looking forward to kind of embracing that team atmosphere a bit more, because as I said last year, we were a team, but there was kind of a lot of individual workings going on as well.
Yeah. I can't wait. I'll be at Hysterical Carnage in a couple of weeks, trying to win that silver ticket.
Yeah. Good luck. It'll be really good to see you on the team.
Yeah, thanks.
So, but even if you don't win the silver ticket, just try and get at least 60 yards. So,
yeah, but that's it. Is it too soon to say if you'll go back to Biggs in 2 years?
I'd really like to go. I definitely have some unfinished business.
Yeah.
But as I also said, I want to get to France to do the 24-hour champs, and I couldn't do the world champs for the 24-hour this year because it was too close to Big. So I'll see how I go. It might come down to a decision between the two events again. It's an expensive trip to get over there, and if I'm going to spend that much money on getting to a race, I generally would like it to be a different race. So, I'll have to see how things play out. It's not a definite no, but I'm probably leaning more towards doing the 24-hour world champs, or maybe like I'm looking at another international backyard, like maybe the Legends one in, is it Belgium? Or Germany? Yeah. Germany. So we'll see what happens. So it's still 2 years away. I've got a bit of time to kind of work that out.
Yeah. So it sounds like the 24-hour track race is the go. What about like 200 milers? And I can imagine a race like you do really well in a race like Coast to Cozzy or something like that as well.
I'm starting to like the point to points a bit more. I've always just been, for my ultras, it's just the lapped races like the 24-hour and the backyards. But I mean, I did a 100K training run in the lead up to Bigs, which was just along 100K stretch of the Bibbulmun track. And it wasn't an event or anything. It was just, I just went out there one day and did this run, and I still had Gemma come along and kind of meet me at points and crew for me. And I actually really enjoyed that. So I think I'm kind of developing a passion for those type of runs a bit more. So there might be a few more of those, or even I might just go and do some more training runs like that, do some more 100K or longer sort of training runs along the Bibbulmun, and yeah, see how I go.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, well, look, I mean, I love watching you over there at Biggs, and I hope you're bloody proud of yourself because you did such a good job. And especially
Yeah,
towards the end, like when you were wearing your Phil Gore top, your Team Gore top, the green and gold, like really made it feel like an iconic Australian moment. It was so good to watch, and like you were just trying your hardest. It was just, and to hit 100 twice in 12 months, it's probably not going to be done many times.
yeah, I was pretty happy with it. But I mean, as I said in a previous post, I put up on Instagram, like I think there's always going to be like a little tiny bit of disappointment there that I wasn't able to get a PB or get the win or get a world record. But overall, I look at it and yeah, to get 100 yards, like I'm pretty happy with that. Like, and to kind of get to that point in a race where I couldn't complete another lap, like, I mean, that's what the backyard's about. That's about finding your limit. And when you're the last one standing, you don't find that limit. So I finally got into that position where I have been able to find that limit, and I can say I've given it absolutely everything. Like I was ready to pull the pin in those early 80s. But it just comes back to my goal is to be in the race as long as possible. If my goal was to win or to get a world record, when I was struggling in the 70s or 80s, I would have just been like, okay, I'm not going to win this. I'm not going to get a world record. Like, why keep bothering? But because my goal is to just stay in it as long as possible, it's like, okay, well, I might not win this or I might not get the world record, but I can still do another lap. And then I'll do that lap, and it's like, I can still do another lap. And it's just, I think that's what the backyard's about. It's seeing about how far you can go and not worry about what anyone else is doing, and just keep pushing until you can't anymore. So I'm really happy with how I managed it with the challenges I was faced with, and being able to get to 100 yards and having now 200-yard totals. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And as a mentor on Search for Hurt, for the 4 contestants doing the backyard ultra at Mirren-Werner, I was just wondering, like, what do you think will be your 3 main focus points for them to do well?
I just have to kind of see what sort of people they are first, and I'd have to look at it from an individual basis. But I mean, ultimately, it's just as I just said, it's going to be seeing how far they can go, not about worrying about what anyone else is doing, about what any of the other runners are doing. It's just going to have to focus on your own plan. So I don't know how much sort of time I get with them before the event. I'm not 100% sure how it all works, but I'd like to be able to sit down with them and kind of work out a plan, kind of know what they're kind of capable of in terms of, what other races have they done, and so we can look at what's a realistic sort of pace plan, and, kind of look into nutrition and stuff like that as well. So as long as I got something like that going into it, then when we're actually doing the race, we can be like, okay, let's just look at the plan. Let's just see what you need to do for this lap, and just try and be a bit more methodical with it like that. But I think, it's just going to be having those little motivational talks with them when they're getting into those dark places, and, when they want to quit. It's like, I've been in those positions. I can speak from experience and hopefully be able to get them out to do a few more laps and get through that dark patch and, reach a point where they can just keep going again.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I'm glad I'm going to be there because it's going to be a really fun race to be a part of, I reckon.
Yeah. Well, you should apply for the Search for Hurt thing.
Yeah. Maybe I will. I'm not that fast over 5Ks though.
Mm. What is your 5K time?
Oh, my best is 18 minutes and 30
Oh,
or
that's pretty good.
Yeah, that was a few years ago though.
Yeah.
I hardly ever try and go fast anymore. But yeah, I'm going to be looking forward to it though.
Yeah.
Do you Thanks heaps for coming on, Phil, just like so soon
Yeah.
after getting back from the trip.
Yeah. No dramas. It's always great to chat with you.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for the support of the podcast as well. Like always.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
um,
it was so great when you released that podcast during the event because it was the second night and I'd seen that you'd put one down. So it's like I don't normally listen to stuff when I do these events. Like I always take my headphones and have some audiobooks and podcasts downloaded, like ready to listen to if I need to. But when I saw you dropped a podcast, it's like, oh yeah, cool. I'll go listen to this while I'm out there running. So that gave me something to listen to for 2 laps, and I really enjoyed it.
yeah, cool.
And and then there was a podcast you released, I think like a week before the event as well, which I listened to during the event. So yeah, that was really good. So it was good to kind of have that. And like I wasn't quite listening to it live because it was probably what was it? Because you'd done it at 25 hours, so it would have been I think about 36 hours. I started listening to it.
Right.
But I mean, it was pretty close to being live, and it was interesting to see what your guys' thoughts were. And it sounded like the live feed was really good. Like we had a lot of positive comments about the live feed, and I was just like, oh, I wish I wasn't running this race. I could just be at home watching it on the live feed. The live feed sounds really good.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah. It was really good. And I was lucky because I was doing night shift at work during it. So I was able to watch like 3 nights in a row. And it was during the day loops as well when the coverage was better because like you could see more. So it was really good.
yeah,
It gave me a few ideas for the live stream I'm going to be doing at Dead Cow Gully next year as well.
yeah, yeah. That's going to be cool.
Yeah. I'm going down there in a couple of weeks for a practice run.
Yeah,
That'll be good. Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, all the best at the physio. Hope they give you good news and they give you some exercises to strengthen you back up as stronger than ever.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. If I can work out how to stop this from happening in the future, I'll be, good to go. I'd like to know how far I could go if I didn't have those issues come up.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe we'll find out.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well done again, Phil. We'll keep in
Thank
touch,
you.
and if I don't see you before Mirror and Werned, I'll see you then.
Yeah, cool. See you then.
All right. See you, Phil.
Okay, thanks, mate. See ya.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, it would be awesome if you could share, comment, like, subscribe, all of that. If you've got any feedback, shoot me a message. Hope you have a great day. See ya.